gosh, what is that? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We can start, I suppose. I don't know how many people. 5 people. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can start, yes.
Yeah. So, can somebody start reading for us, please?
Right, I can read.
Thank you.
Right, but I'm not able to move the text, so I'll need somebody to move the text for me. I hope Brother Pigbin can do that. Right, I'll start reading. The title of this chapter, I think it's the beginning of chapter 8, is Reversals in Revolutions and How to Avoid Them. We start with a quotation from the Norwegian Nobel Committee, and it says, if China is to advance in harmony with other countries and become a key partner in upholding the values of the world community, it must first grant freedom of expression to all its citizens. This is by Torbjørn Jagland, excuse the pronunciation, chairman of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, explaining why the 2010 Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Chinese dissident Louis Xiaobo, who is serving an 11-year jail sentence. The road to freedom
Sorry,
and prosperity.
sorry,
Yes,
Sister Poor, can I just interrupt?
yes.
Brother Pigeon, can you host everyone just in case you drop out? Is he still there?
I hope you can hear. Yeah.
Okay, carry on. I don't know if you can hear
Okay.
us.
Okay. The road to freedom and prosperity is a long journey. It took the United States at least a century and a half, from colonization to the Declaration of Independence. Toppling a despot does not necessarily mean the end of tyranny. In many African countries, a colonial autocrat was replaced by a neocolonial despot, which sparked a second liberation movement led by military soldiers and rebel movements in the 1960s and 1970s. But the so-called military saviors and rebel leaders turned out to be far worse than the despots they had ousted. A frequent occurrence in the 1980s and into the 21st century. Again, as Africans like to say, we struggle very hard to remove one cockroach from power, and the next rat comes to do the same thing. Haba, damn. As we have seen, the cause of Iran's 1979 revolution was betrayed and even reversed, and the color or flower revolution in Eastern Europe have wilted. In some countries, retrograde authoritarianism has emerged, and some autocrats have made a full comeback. In other cases, liberators transformed themselves into incompetent autocrats, dealing in corrupt politics, criminality, and even drug trafficking. A revolution often contains the seeds of its own destruction. Too often, after a despot has been toppled, revolutionaries begin feuding amongst themselves, devouring each other, and in many cases, allowing the ousted despot to claw his way back to power. A few examples. Benin, Africa's first village revolution, sovereign national conference, stripped Marxist dictator Mateo Kerekou of power and held elections. Nicéphore Songlo was sworn in as president in April 1991. But in 1996, Songlo lost the presidency to Kerekou, the chameleon, who held it for another 10 years. Second example, Congo-Brazzaville, or Republic of Congo, of the Congo. In February 1991, a national conference dismantled the 12-year-old government of Marxist General Denis Sassou Nguesso. With the help of France and Angola, the civilian government of Pascal Lissouba was overthrown in October 1997, and Sassou Nguesso was sworn in as president. He was re-elected in 2002 and 2009 for additional 7-year terms. Indonesia. After popular student-led street protests, the Suharto regime collapsed in 1998, but it still casts a dark shadow over Jakarta. Golkar Suharto's own party is very much in control and up to its old shenanigans. Reform is in retreat. Golkar stalwarts are now contemplating declaring Suharto a national hero. Pakistan. Pakistan's military dictator, Pervez Musharraf, was forced to resign after the Black Revolution of 2007. On September 9, 2008, Asif Ali Zardari, husband of the slain former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, was sworn in as president. But Zardari has since been a stunning disappointment, dogged by corruption and other scandals. In October 2010, Musharraf announced the launch of a new political party, the All Pakistani Muslim League, to take part in the general elections in 2013. The Philippines. Corazon Cory Aquino, the charismatic widow of the assassinated opposition leader Benigno Aquino, led the People Power, or EDSA, revolution that drove dictator Ferdinand Marcos from office in 1986. During her turbulent 6-year rule, her failure to chasten the revolution forces she had unleashed at EDSA led to the EDSA 2 revolution in January 2001 and the EDSA 3, April 2001, which are often described as mob rule. EDSA is an acronym derived from, I won't read that, Epifania de los Santos Avenue, the major thoroughfare connecting five cities in Metro Milan: Passai, Makati, Mandaluyong, Quezon City, and Caloocan, forgive the pronunciation, where street protesters massed. Kyrgyzstan. In March 2005, Kumabek Bakiev rode the crest of the Tulip Revolution to oust the country's dictator, President Askar Akayev. But Bakiev turned into another dictator and was chased out of office in April 2010. Georgia. Georgia's transition from a former Soviet republic occurred with the Rose Revolution of November 2003, in which Mikhail Saakashvili and his allies ousted Eduard Shevardnadze. However, when Saakashvili faced the possibility of losing power in November 2009, he sent riot police to crack down on a demonstration and vandalized a television station. Several of his former allies turned against him. Russia. The introduction of Glasnost and Perestroika by Mikhail Gorbachev in 1985 and the subsequent collapse of the former Soviet Union in 1991 did not bring democracy to Russia. It enjoyed a brief fillip under Boris Yeltsin in the 1990s. However, the ascendancy of Vladimir Putin, a former KGB officer, in 1999 saw a retreat of democracy and the rise of retrograde authoritarianism, which has transformed Russia into a mafia state.
You okay, Sister Tapua? She's still there. Have we lost Sister Tapua?
Yes, the Tapua has jumped off.
Okay, can someone take over, please? Hello? Hello? Can someone take over the reading, please?
I am
Brother,
driving, otherwise I would, but I can in about 20 minutes.
sorry?
I'm in my car, so I can't do it, but I can do it in about 15 or 20 minutes. I'll be home then.
Okay. Somebody, please. Sir Windhoek? Brother Coco? I think I saw Brother Coco somewhere. No one is available.
Gorbachev, who once supported Putin, turned against him. In an interview with the New York Times, he said that Putin's leadership had undermined Russia's fledgling democracy by stifling the opposition forces. Gorbachev even called Putin's government party, United Russia, a bad copy of the Soviet Communist Party. He said that party officials were concerned entirely with clinging to power and did not want Russia to take part in civic life. In February of 2011, he said he was ashamed, that's now Gorbachev, of the way Russia is run today, and warned that the Kremlin could face an Egypt-style uprising. It was in 2011. He denounced Russia's ruling class as rich and desolate, and lambasted the Kremlin for eroding the free media and elections that he introduced in the 1980s. Ukraine. Can you just scroll down a little bit? Yeah, Ukraine. Yes, I got it. In late 2004, Viktor Yushchenko and Yulia Tymoshenko led the popular Orange Revolution against a rigged presidential election. Yushchenko duly beat Viktor Yanukovych in a new election and took office in January 2005. Serving until 2010. Sorry for that breakup. Tymoshenko, who had served as prime minister from December 2007 to March 2010, also ran for president in 2010, but Yanukovych was declared the winner, making a full return to power after having been ousted in the Orange Revolution 6 years earlier. Nicaragua. In July 1979, Daniel Ortega, a leader in the Sandinista National Liberation Front, SNLF, led a popular rebellion that resulted in the overthrow and exile of dictator Anastasio Somoza Debayle. In the 1990 presidential election, Ortega was defeated by a 14-party anti-Sandinista alliance led by Violeta Barrios de Chamorro, but he won the 2006 presidential election and returned to power. What went wrong? After us having through all those examples, given how often revolutions turn sour, some might say, why bother? Let the dictators stay. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. I heard about the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. Are some stages perpetually doomed to invidious cycles of revolution and reversals? What goes wrong after a revolution change? It's a question. What goes wrong after a revolution change? up, please. Brother Pigeon, can you scroll a little bit up? And Sister Tapua, can
Yes.
you gladly take over?
Yes. Brother Pigeon was asking if we can discuss what we've read so far.
Okay.
I don't know whether I heard the same. I don't know whether anyone else heard the same. He could write in the chat if it's possible for him to write in the chat.
Politics is getting very hot in Kenya.
I think it would be better to read the what's wrong bit.
Yes.
So we can discuss with what we've read so far.
Yeah, because it tallies with the examples
Yeah.
that we have just read.
Absolutely.
I agree. Take over, Sister Tapua, please.
Okay, I will take over. If the text is moved to where I should read.
Brother Pigeon,
Pigeon, can you move to what went wrong, please?
whoa.
Okay, can you move up a bit? Just a bit more. Yes, thank you. Right, I'll continue reading. Thank you, Sewinduk, for taking over. I hope I just don't drop out again. Anyway, what went wrong? Given how often revolutions turn sour, some might say, why bother? Let the dictators stay. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. Are some states perpetually doomed to invidious cycles of revolutions and reversals? What goes wrong after a revolutionary change? Subheading: inexperience, impatience, and charged emotions. It is frequently argued that revolutionary heroes and cadres, having spent years or decades in the bush, often lack experience in governing and are ill prepared when power is suddenly thrust upon them. There is some merit in this argument, as there is a vast difference between the skills needed to fight tyrannical regimes and the forces of colonialism on the one hand, and those needed to run a government efficiently and develop an economy successfully on the other hand. Battling the forces of colonialism and tyranny requires agitation, strikes, boycotts, highly charged emotional rhetoric, and unrelenting activism to call world attention to errant injustices. To govern or to run an economy, skills such as institutional knowledge, administrative skills, patience, diligence, and a willingness to compromise are needed. Can we scroll up? Thank you. Many of Africa's liberation heroes in the 1960s lacked the necessary administrative skills and should have retired after winning independence. But they stayed on and, in country after country, drove their economies into a slump. The case of Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, who won independence for Ghana in 1957 was perhaps the most sorrowful. Nkrumah did not retire after his victory, and he enjoyed much influence in Africa. He proceeded to establish a one-party socialist state and outlawed opposition parties. Tragically for Africa, one country after another followed in his footsteps. Guinea, Mali, Congo-Brazzaville, that's the Republic of Congo, Tanzania, Zambia, and a host of others. Predictably, in each country, tyranny followed. Economies were ruined, and the nationalists were ousted by the military. But the soldiers who ousted them were even worse. If we fast forward to the 1900s, a case can be made that Lech Walesa of Poland and the leaders of the color or flower revolution should have retired after the cataclysmic events. But then it would have been a tall order, as these leaders basked in public adulation after ousting tyrannical regimes. A changed political dynamic and culture. That's heading number 2 of why. A changed political dynamic and culture. A
Can't we stop now?
successful
Can't we stop there now for now, Sister Tapua? Or you don't think so?
I have no idea how many other points are there to the end of why it happens. Maybe Brother Pigman has an idea of maybe the other subheadings. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
To me, it is now becoming too much to chew.
All right.
To me, that's I'm talking about myself. But if everyone
All right.
else is fine, we can proceed.
Okay, then let's discuss.
Okay, I think there were about 3 or 4.
So who wants to open the
Chair?
discussion? Oh, you're continuing.
No, I'm just wondering, can we use the question that the author was trying to answer? From our own experience, what is it that makes the revolutions fail? For instance,
That
when
the
I was
last
reading the
topic.
section that I was reading there, I totally agreed with him that inexperience, because if you're out in fighting a guerrilla warfare, like in the Zimbabwean situation, for years, and then you're suddenly thrust into an administrative office and you don't have administrative skills, let alone ability to compromise, because war says you're fighting the person to the death. They're forced to get the Zimbabwean situation. The liberation fighters were forced to go to the negotiating table. Otherwise, they didn't want to go there. They wanted an outright win. So that carries over into post-war, where compromise feels like it's a dirty word. And yet, when you're now running a country, you have to include everyone, even the opposition, even the guys you don't like, even the ones that you disagree with, but not to the extent of what has happened in South Africa with the African National Congress. Sorry, I'll end there. Anyway, that's my view.
Is somebody's hand up? So Windhoek.
Yes, thank you, Sister Chisomo. Thank you, Sister Tapua. For curiosity's sake, you have likened the situation in South Africa. If you are at liberty maybe at a later stage you can elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yes.
To bring us up to speed. That's if you are at liberty. Be that as it
Yes.
may. You have correctly quoted as per the author that inexperience would be a factor. But the dictator, before the guy that has led the revolution successfully, the dictator, where has he gotten the administration skills from? As he could have come from nowhere. I would ascribe this type of failures not only to inexperience, but fellow revolutionaries turning against the revolution leader, and as such, making him appear to be weak, inexperienced, and that would result in him being ousted again. That is just my thinking. Because obviously, ceteris paribus, no administration is the sole responsibility of one person. Obviously, however much a dictator you are, you would have a support system that should compensate for whatever your shortcomings are. And therefore, I still think that it's just the system, the revolutionary system, that tends against the revolution leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Windhoek. Sister Tapua, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, I just want to maybe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I wanted to respond to my example because I was giving an example with relation to governing. Because if you're going to govern, you're going to govern for everyone. But first and foremost, you'd have pronounced the things that you need to put at the forefront of your government. But you take cognizance of the desires of the other parties. And to such an extent, I admired what Barack did when he came to power. He even chose people from within the opposition who had the skills that he needed that he couldn't find amongst his own people. And I think we need to have that maturity where, when you're now in government, it's not an obligation that if you're going to lead a particular section, you have to have the party, the approval of the ruling party, especially when it's specialist areas. I also agree to an extent with my comrade who's just spoken, that I think sometimes it's not even the administrative ability, it's our understanding of how particularly colonial institutions run, because we are forced to inherit a system that does not tally with who we are and how we function. So, for example, every department has to have a permanent secretary, the person who's always in charge of the running of the department, irrespective of which government comes to power. But those are the people that the revolutionaries feared the most, because they are the people who were running the institutions that alienated them. And therefore, the challenge is, to what extent are you going to trust this new person who is supposed to be professional. And in the case of the United Kingdom, for example, I've seen loads of permanent secretaries who don't agree with the policies of the government that's coming in resigning and saying, no, I can't work with these people and advance the policies that they need to advance. So when I was giving South Africa as an example, I was saying, yes, we must, when we come into power, we must govern for everybody. But I'm talking of the ANC getting into bed with their former erstwhile to such an extent that they've forgotten the people. That's what I meant when I said the ANC. I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the thing you mentioned last about one government should try and hire from the opposition. We do that a lot in Malawi. But then the problem is when people keep switching from this government to that government, it looks like it's the same people governing the country. So one government will take over, one party will take over, then people from the other party start flocking from the other one, or they're invited to come and take positions. So in the end, it's like, oh, they're the same people, oh, they're the same people ruling, always, governing and stuff like that. But basically, like you say, they're looking for expertise from the different people. And then there was mention of uh, armies, that they are worse than whoever they overthrow. Um, and then we spoke about incompetence. So I was thinking, do the army people, when they take over, and are these trained army officers, or are they just freedom fighters? You see, we see people like the Kagames and the Musevenis, and I think, was it Robert Mugabe? Were they army people? No. I think Ghana. Were these people specially trained, or they just wore uniform because they were in exile, turned military from freedom fighting, which means they end up with no experience? Or are they trained, that they are trained like Traore, who knows what he's doing because he's gone through systems and systems. He's seen different systems and specially trained. So that's what my question is. But otherwise, yes, people take over with no experience, and that happens again in Malawi when we had Bingu, the economist. No, we had Kamuzubanda. Then we had whoever took from him, no experience whatever, no knowledge of anything. The whole system collapsed. Then an economist took over. Then things picked up, and then he had his brother who is also very, very more experienced than he was. So he was his advisor. So it was a very, very successful government. Then they killed him off. Then another one came with no
Uh-huh.
experience. Sorry?
Okay. Can we, I'm just wondering whether we could use the subheadings that we have there as a guide, because we've got 4 points on what went wrong. The first point is inexperience, the second one is impatience, and the third one is charged emotions. Maybe we can hear from others, see what they think if we take turns.
Sister Tapua, while you are there, can I add something small to what Sister
No,
Grace has
ask the
said?
chair. Yeah, ask the chair because Grace is chairing.
Oh,
I was just making a suggestion.
sorry. Sister
You
Chisomo,
can ask. Uh,
I was
can
trying
I
to
add something?
explain my side, giving my examples, and I've been cut off. So go
My
ahead.
apologies. No, my apologies, because I thought if you're chairing, then you let everyone take turns and maybe you come in towards the end. Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
So Windog.
Yeah, this is Chisomo. I heard you, but maybe if it is a government of national unity, then we can incorporate people from opposition. Because opposition are there to take over government from you. And how you incorporate them in your regime, are they not too close for comfort? Don't they become too close for comfort? Just a food for thought. And out of Malawi, with a population of 12 million and
22.
7 million, come again?
22.
22 million and 9 million have voted for you into power. And out of 9 billion people, you cannot get an economist to run, or you cannot get a competent lawyer to be the auditor, I mean, the attorney general, and you get from the opposition. Ish, that doesn't sit well with me. Thank you.
Okay.
Brother, yeah. Ifo Ikede.
Thank you. My statements are similar to the last one, but I will add an illustration. Imagine you are married to a man and your plan is for only the two of you to be together. And then somebody else will call her the opposition, tells you that she's interested in your husband. And then you say, you know what? Come and live in our house and let's see what happens. Don't be surprised if you're suddenly divorced and somebody else has your husband. In this case, the husband will be the country. The ANC's move, that's what it seems like to me, right? Now, if you were more traditional and you were planning to have a polygamous relationship, that's a different story. But if you are not, do not bring in your opposition. That's my thing. And then lastly, I think as we're analyzing some of this, I think the analysis is incomplete of some important data. The important data is foreign interference.
Thank you.
Because the problem is the revolutions that succeeded, and then people came in some cases militarily. In some other cases, they did some underhanded stuff, you know. So Lumumba did not disappear by himself. Nkrumah also did not disappear himself. The multiple people that the CIA has assassinated in Nigeria did not happen by themselves. The current president of Nigeria, who was a drug dealer in America, with over $500,000 of assets that he forfeited to the US, they refused to arrest him. But then they were the first to accept him as president. So a revolution fails, I think, because sometimes people forget that our enemies are our enemies. And some well-meaning people, because they're power hungry, go and collude with our enemies because they want something. And then they end up destroying it. So we need to include that, because if we don't include that, then not only is our analysis incomplete, we will come to very, very accurate conclusions based on the data, but the data is incomplete. That's my story. And please do not invite your competition, whether it's another man or woman, into your house if you want to keep your house the way it is. Thank you. I yield the mic now. Thank you. If someone is speaking, I hear nothing.
No, no one was speaking, comrade. We are waiting for chair.
Is that
Is she still
Chisomo?
on?
Hello? No, I clicked something and then it covered my microphone. Anyway, yeah, so not to invite another wife or husband. That happens a lot in Malawi. as I was saying earlier. And then when that happens, and then when they fall out, then they start killing each other. We've had 2 killings so far, but that's what we do. It's already happening with the new government. A lot of people have been brought in from the opposition. I think in their mind, they are weakening the opposition by doing that. I don't know. Yeah, anyone? Brother Coco?
No, thank you, comrades. Apologies, I couldn't read earlier, but thanks to Sarah Windhoek who stepped in. I was very happy to hear your voice as you read, comrade. We should hear it more often. Brother Ifo, thank you for stealing my thunder. I don't mind. I'm actually pleased that you identified that. Pigbin sometimes says to me, I should not analyze and talk about things that are not written on the text. But it's very hard not to when you see the narrative that's being peddled. You can see here what we always say about Dr. Aiti, that Dr. Aiti is one of those Africans who was educated in the West to promulgate or spread the Western values, Western systems of governance and all stuff. I compare him to our own Kemi Badenoch here, who said she doesn't favor multiculturalism here in the UK. She favors Western value system. So you can tell where he's going to. He wants to generalize and say all of the post-colonial liberation leaders who came into power in Africa made the government one-party states and were dictators. And this is what he says, first of all, about Kwame. I take offense in that because Kwame tried a lot of things to bring a revolution in the way things are. But I will admit that we probably were not ready for the revolution yet. And this ties with some of the speakers. I think Sita Tapua said, we came into the system. We continue the same system. So you cannot call that the revolution. You would rather call that a reform. If you just change the rider and the horse is the same horse, that is not the revolution. You just change a rider. You just change a jockey. And you are going to still get more or less the same results, or maybe the horse is going to be a bit faster or a bit slower. We don't know. But transformation is not going to happen like that. So majority of the things we got in Africa was we got the Western system of doing things, and we continued with that. Up until now, we are still using that same system. So I don't know why we would call that a revolution. Let's not forget what a revolution is. A revolution changes the underlying system. A reform are just modifications here and there, modifications there and there. And I would like to quote the words of Advocate Moses Kakani, the lawyer in South Africa. He said that it's like when you take the kids to McDonald's, they give them the drawings, they give them the crayons. It's the same crayons, the same drawings that these kids can come in and draw those things. You just color them. It's the same system. You don't give the kids a blank sheet of paper so that the kids can do a whole thing altogether different. It's the same thing. So we are set up to fail. That's the first thing that we have to realize. We are set up to fail. Then the other point that I wanted to raise was tying to what Brother Ifo said. The coups that came after independence, they were all counter-revolutionary coups. They were supported from abroad. Mobutu was supported from abroad. We have evidence that Nkrumah was supported from abroad. And we also have evidence that they tried a lot of times to remove Sekou Touré from. That's to bring someone in who they wanted to do what they wanted. This is the crucial matter. But with Traore now, and some of the other coups, there were some other coups which were revolutionary coups, but majority of the coups we have had were counter-revolutionary. They went again for the Western system of doing things. And then again, lack of government, lack of experience, lack of knowledge of what to do, lack of governance. It ties to what we said in the conscientism before, that most of the Africans who they brought, they gave them a minimum of European education. They wouldn't give you enough for you to understand how to do things. They give you just enough to run the enterprise the way they want it to be. This is the problem. Like Emperor Bokassa. Imagine Bokassa, who didn't know anything, came in and toppled them. And they then revolutionary leader, or the leader who came in at independence on behalf of France. He ran it like how the French wanted. And they didn't care even if he killed the kids because the kids wouldn't wear his wife's uniform. They don't care. Mobutu the same, they didn't care what Mobutu did, even if he took the money from the IMF and the World Bank and used it to fund his own lavish lifestyle. That's fine. The last point before I step off is the Congo Brazzaville. I think he mentioned Congo Brazzaville. With Congo Brazzaville, Pascal Lissouba, Pascal Lissouba came in after a democratic vote. But that democratic vote was again reversion to the Western ways of doing things. What was important was before that democratic vote was they had a national conference. The Congolese ran a national conference, which was Afrocentric way of doing things. Everybody was involved, the civil society, everything. Haiti doesn't talk about that. And he doesn't talk about the fact that the Angolans were used by Shell to topple the Suba and bring Sassou Nguesso in power. Again, it's the same system. And if Lissouba did not do what the French wanted, they wanted him out. He's not talking about all of that because you can tell what his narrative is. His narrative is to paint the African liberation fighters as bad, essentially bad, poor, like Nkrumah. It's like he had something against Nkrumah. It's a propaganda to paint the Nkrumah as inexperienced, really bad. What I can say is that Nkrumah came into power, but he did not have the formula in place, the pillars of society, the pillars to drive what he wanted. But you cannot deny that he tried everything, even to a centralized Pan-African government. Nkrumah went to 1963 prepared more than anyone else. But what they did was the neocolonial puppets came in and just did that coalition in Monrovia and decided we will go with our colonial masters. And that is what has been happening ever since. We have to realize that. And Haiti wouldn't see that because he doesn't want to say it. He wants to sell another narrative. My point being simple, we need to take what we think is useful from Haiti, but have to realize who Haiti stands for. I yield.
Thank you, Brother Coco. Is that a hand, Sir Windhoek?
Yes, in case there is no any other hand, I would.
Anybody wants to speak? Brother General Anunnaki? Give us your comment, Brother General.
Hi. Greetings, everyone. So what am I
Greetings.
commenting on this whole text?
On the what you've read, what do you think? What's your opinion?
Okay. So from what I've heard from the members, from what I've just and what I've read here, is that during those times, more especially in the 1900s, there've been a lot of spy work obviously happening in and out of Africa. So it just also explains the fact that even our great leaders like Kwame, they by the use of spy, the enemy was using espionage upon them to check their moves, their motives, bribe the necessary people so as to sabotage the OAU program, which Haile Selassie was seated as the king of kings who was coronated in 1930. So in 1963, he started the OAU, and then Kwame Nkrumah was one of the people who supported that. And then the enemy, he used the Islam so-called countries to form a counter alliance, which is the Monrovia Bloc. And then they called the radical Pan-Africans the Monrovia, the Casablanca bloc, sorry. And so you can see how they play, and also it speaks to the thing of the Soviets and Chinese being also involved in the overthrow of other governments. For instance, the government of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, that man Mengistu Miriam, he was sponsored by the Russian government, and he overthrew the emperor. And subsequently, you can see that during those times, by the end of the 1900s, all the emperors, all the kings of the so-called nations were overthrown, and only the Queen of England was left, if you can check what happened. So I'm saying that they used the spies to track. They used even previously the spies to track our great leaders, their movement, their motives, their plans, their close allies, and they use that to try and control them to away from the main Pan-African goal. So I think here Kwame Nkrumah was showing a bit of that information, as you can see here in this line where he says here in 1990 he saw a retreat of democracy and the rise of retrograde authoritarianism, which has transformed Russia into a mafia state. You see, all that information is just trying to explain to us how the white elites, as the share of government, regardless of nations falling and rising, have always had the upper hand or a plan to move the humans to another economic zone. As now, as you can see, before I close, you can see that we are moving to another economic zone or global economic reset, as they say. So now they distracting the Africans to not know or study about the AI, so that in the next coming 3 years, 4 years, we're out of the economic system because we won't be able to access or use the upcoming advanced tools. So yeah, it's things like that they always do on the back, on the shadow, to try and to delay or to remove the black man, black woman from reaching the ultimate Pan-African goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would agree that it's been happening a lot of late. Our leaders doing strange things. We think they're doing that, and then boom, all of a sudden this has happened. So you just wonder how all these things are happening, but it's happening a lot. Each time they try to take 2 steps, they're pulled back by something else. So as in the in the initial leaders, where they were negotiating the terms for independence and this and that, they seem to have done the same thing, agreed to something, and then left other things for later. And now it's difficult to undo them. And it's happening again now. They're busy negotiating that, and then the West will slide in at this and slide in that into the terms. And the next thing, we're all complaining, but it's been happening ever since. So we don't know how to get out of this one. Like we're saying that all these systems are theirs, they're tracking us, even when we're in Zooms like this or in these WhatsApp groups or wherever. They're reading everything. They're collecting information everywhere. Where does that leave us if we don't have our own anything? China will always do their own thing. Russia does their own thing. We don't, because we're all so split. We end up with Ghana fighting them over this slave thing. Everybody else has just gone quiet. They haven't even commented. I haven't even heard anybody comment on it. And yet the internet has gone wild over it. I haven't heard anything from the leaders. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Thank you. Anybody? Sir Windhoek, you were going to come next.
Thank you, Sister Chisomo. I equally took offense at what the author says about Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah was a pioneer and a beacon of hope for the entire Africa. And to say that Kwame Nkrumah did not, one of his downfalls, did not retire after a successful revolution. Why would he retire, and what happens to the vision that he has and that he has had? You bring about a revolution with specific objectives. Once we are successful, we are going to do this, we are going to do this, and we are going to do this. What would happen to the objectives had he have to retire after the successful revolution? So clearly that says he was not wanted. And obviously he was not wanted by the Western powers. That's why the author did not even bring the point that was raised by Brother Ivo and Brother Coco, that the influence, the external influence of the force of the West bringing down the successful revolution. That's just what I wanted to add. And now the subtext, the subheading is inexperience, impatience, and I have forgotten the third. Impatience for what? And the third for what? Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Windhoek. Sister Tapua has her hand up.
Thank you very much, my brother Windhoek, for raising the points that you have, and also Brother Coco, for taking into account the context, the world situation in which revolutions take place. The fact that Ayete seems to think that once a revolution is attained, then the person who's led the revolution must resign, brings me to question what a revolution is. Should the objective of a revolution be simply to topple someone and go home? I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. Because I then asked myself, if he is saying and giving examples of a chain of African countries that followed the socialist road and established one party systems, we're asking ourselves, are successful governments led by or are, are successful governments entertainers of multi parties? And are successful governments led by experienced administrators? No. Because if you look at the parties that are coming into power in the developed world, a lot of those guys are not administrators. They are not experienced administrators. They've never run governments, which points us to what my brother Coco was saying, that it's external forces that are bent on proving that you cannot do it. And we then begin to think, oh, yes, we no, we can't do it. Because sometimes if you're in a situation where um, you're an agitator, you're an organizer, when you come into power, people have to be patient. And I also think that the terms of the democratic systems that we have are not long enough for us to establish the changes that we need to establish through a revolution. So, for example, you're coming into power to topple a colonial government that's been in place for 100 years, and you have 5 years to change things, to turn things around. No, it doesn't work that way, because it's not possible to go through all the things that need to be changed. And this is why I think impatience was listed as one of them, because people are promised things. We promise a united Africa. We promise so much. But are we going to be able to do it in the terms, in the year terms that the democratic systems that we inherit enable us? 5 years, 3 years, 5 years. You can't do that. You can't change in a way that makes sense of the word revolution. So I think he's like my brother says, he's a crony of the West, educated in the West, and just out to say, show us that we don't know anything. And that's not true. Absolutely not true. And I don't like him. Sorry. I'm getting emotional. The last point is emotional. Because when you're going through a revolution, you have to involve your emotions. When you're governing, you have to see, because Ubuntu does not allow you to leave your emotions aside. We are people who sing and dance. We dance at funerals, we sing at funerals. We laugh at funerals, we enjoy ourselves. We're very expressive. If we're going to govern, we've got to govern with Ubuntu in heart. We've got to govern with the people at the center of everything and emotionally defend people. Otherwise, if we disconnect and we start calculating per capita, what this, that, and the other, it doesn't make sense. It does not put food on our people's tables. Anyway, I'm not going to come up with economic terms because I know none. All I know is those numbers don't put food on our tables. I will yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to speak? I see One Map Africa and Hypercon. I think one other person has left. Before I call Brother Coco. One Map Africa, do you have anything you want to say?
Thank you so much. For now, yes, I have missed some of the discussions that I can have said something, but it's unfortunate that I've joined a bit late. But thank you for giving me the time. Greetings, everybody. I hope I will be best listening for the day. Thank you.
Okay. Is that Brother Hypercon?
Yes, it's Brother Maoli.
Brother Mauli.
Yes.
Okay.
Greetings.
Greetings.
I think that I was taking a cue from the sister who just spoke right now. That one thing to I'm realizing that I think we are not following is if we look at the our predecessors, which is Nkrumah and co, you realize that they took the first step towards our liberation, and as that step is taken, it is understood or it behoves on us for us to um, continue that step because the step taken has to be continued towards the destination. But it's like we along the way we've not been able to take that step, and there is no deliberate uh, mind to say, okay, we really want to um, follow this step according to the trajectory our liberators started for us. So it's like we are stuck, and I think we should look at that aspect and start from that background where we can now say that okay, conscientizing Africans all over the continent, making sure that they also demand from their leaders or when a politician is coming to power, demand from them their policies about African liberation or African unity. So this, how do we go about it?
Is that you finished or have you been cut off?
Yes, I'm finished.
All right, okay. Who was first? Brother Coco?
I listened with interest on Thursday when Wada Kwame challenged Sister Tapua about democracy and did not want to get drawn into that discussion. But what I'm seeing here is that, again, Dr. Aiti is trying to sell democracy as the best system ever. And by democracy here, I think he is talking about the Western style of democracy. He's not even apologizing and saying we should be looking for a system that's representative or participatory in nature. And I would like us to reflect on that and realize that we knew how to do this before the European came. We need our own participative system. It doesn't matter whether there's one leader at the top, at the end, as long as the people play a part, play a role in that. We need a system which allows contribution by everyone. And it should not just be political, it has to be economic. And I don't get that in his sentence. He's more of talking about the Russians, they didn't shift towards democracy. So he's sort of, again, a mouthpiece of the West. And as I said again, let's just pick what we think is important and leave everything else. That's my first point. The second point is general anonymity. I don't want to pick apart what you said. I just want to correct something in what you contributed. Casablanca was Dr. Nkrumah, and he had the backing of all the northern states. All the North African countries supported Dr. Nkrumah, along with Mali and Guinea. All the others in the Monrovia camp, they were the ones that were trained by the colonial masters. They are the former French colonies who we know did not have to fight for liberation. They were handed liberation on the plate, and so-called liberation. You can see what Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali have done now to claw back some of that. It's the same thing which they took, and they took that to Addis at the OAU. What Haile Selassie, His Imperial Majesty did was he was drafted in to reconcile the two sides. All right. So he reconciled, and in the end, we ended up with this watered down system of unity program, which is taking us up to 2063. Dr. Nkumo wanted it right there and then. He said that in his speech. Read his speech. He is the only one who said we want unity now. When we live here, we have to have our foreign minister, all the best brains we have, sitting down and drawing the framework. And that came from the Casablanca coup, not from the Monrovia coup. Monrovia coup are the ones who wanted this gradual thing. They elected to hold on to power because that's what their colonial masters had put them. So let me yield here. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Coco. When we talk about Western democracy, I often wonder which democracy, or what does it even mean? Especially when the very West walks into everybody's country, everybody's continent, making dictations and demanding this and that and shooting people down and kidnapping them. Which democracy are we really talking about, and what is it? Thank you. That's my question. Sister Tapua.
Thank you very much. I think my contribution has to do with I'm following up on what I was wondering what democracy is. I mean, what revolution is for the author. Because if he thinks that after a revolution, the person who's led the revolution must resign, it is brought to mind what I think is a mistake that some South Africans are making. Sorry, I have to give South Africa because they're my neighbors. Are making in terms of labeling Mandela and saying he sold out. Here's my take on the situation. He was leading a revolution. He was coming to the end of his life. He needed to leave the revolution one step further than where he was. And it was up to the people who got the baton to continue the revolution. It's unreasonable to have expected Mandela walking out of prison and signing that paper to result in total change. It had to be implemented. The battle was still supposed to go on and is still supposed to go on. I think the other parties in the revolution were caught napping because when they got the button stick, they couldn't move. And I suppose, like what this author says, some of the failure is inherently built into the system. Like what the PAC says about the, what you call it, that agreement that says everybody has an equal power and what have you. In itself, it becomes a Hercules heel. So there is need for us to understand that whilst we're working towards the unification of Africa, if all the countries sign today, it's not going to happen. We need to continue to work at making sure that the glue sticks. And that's really important. So for me, that's the revolution. The revolution is not getting the borders gone, because that will not be an answer to our situation, because we're in a context where the neocolonialists will still come up with another plan to try and make sure they stop us. And that means we are not supposed to rest on our laurels. I yield for now. Thank you.
Thank you. We started a bit late. I'm not sure what time we're finishing. Otherwise, it would have been 9 o'clock UK time or 8 o'clock Ghana time. So, shall we carry on? Read or more comments?
We can all see on the so I know we started this. This is important for 10 minutes.
I can't hear you. I don't know if everybody can hear what you're saying.
Can you write in the chat, please? Are you able to write in the chat?
Okay, people, what do you want to do? Continue reading?
I think time is time, irrespective of whether we start
Yes, I think
early
we can
or
end.
whether we start late.
Okay, so we
So
finish, we close now then.
yeah, and
Yes.
Zooms and these things are booked for specific time, so let us stick to that rather.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Kindly stop here. We can't
Yes, that's
continue.
peeping. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's finish next time.
So
Okay,
what's our
hand over to
conclusion?
brother Pigeon. I'll hand over to you, or Sawindok in his place.
No, my sister, you can just call the meeting to an end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming. And we continue next time. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.